Welcome back to the arena with your host, Matt, your co-host, MD. First of all, thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, subscribe, follow, tell your friends, family, colleagues, everybody. We obviously, the goal is to touch as many lives as possible. So we appreciate the support. To start this one off, we kind of like the format we've been riffing with a little bit, which is to ask ourselves a couple of deep questions, one another. Now, MD doesn't know the questions I'm going to ask him. I don't know the questions he's going to ask me. And that's what makes it kind of great. So the first, what I'm going to ask MD to start is, where in your life do you feel you have lots of confidence, and on the flip side, maybe lack it? That's part one. Part two is, what variables do you think drive the difference? Like, what makes someone more confident in certain places than the other, or just more broadly? I feel like you'd like that, especially that second part, because it really spurs thought, and you get to kind of think philosophy. Your philosophical version.
Well, first of all, I let off last time, so anyway, I'm leading off again. But seat gets warm real quick on this show. I think. Yeah, when you asked the first question, I started thinking, and then the answer to the second question was what was coming up. It was almost like I was starting with trying to understand what makes me more confident, so that I could better answer where in my life I am more confident versus where in my life I'm lacking confidence, I think was your question, right? Just as simple as that. I would probably actually start with the second question, if I can.
You can do whatever you'd like.
I think that what makes me more confident is when I'm in an arena in which I'm performing well. And so there's measurement component to that, but like in my life, where I'm most confident right now is in my career. And I would say that stems from, like, right now I'm doing really, really well in my role. And with that, we can unpack this together. Like, I'm unpacking it in my mind as I'm speaking. But when you're doing really well in like a business to business sales role, there's a lot of validation, recognition. There's an objective measurement that validates it. So there's validation on the external, and then, obviously that validates a lot of like inner components of me. And when I say there's a lot of recognition, it's like people around the business, people that you've built relationships with, and then people that you actually don't really interact with every single day. They'll send you a message and like congratulate you, or be like, wow, like, way to go. And I'm always a little taken aback by those moments, because I don't know that, I try to do that. I try to create those moments for others, but like when it comes from somebody you don't really talk to, or you wouldn't think cares to take like the time and spend the energy to recognize you, to send you a message, even if it's short and sweet. Man, that's like the stuff that just like pushes a ton of wind at my sails. And I would say that,
do you think those
like,
messages are genuine, by the way? This is totally random and curious. Or do you think they're
I do,
performative?
because they're directly to me, and I don't know that there's like, even if there was an ulterior motive, like, it's not like I can do anything for them. So I don't know that, I think that it is a little bit genuine. Yeah, no, I think there are certainly types of recognition, especially in a corporate environment, that are absolutely performative, right? And like, especially if it's top down and like C-level people are just being like, nice job, right? Like, I think they're scripted in some sense, but I think, and perhaps that's where it makes the other type of recognition feel so much better, when it does come from like a more genuine place. And like, I think that's the part that takes me back a little bit. And it's like, wow, this person of all people, I wouldn't, that's just like their name pops up, and it's a name you don't see often. They thought to just send you a note. So anyway, long story short, right now, like, where I'm performing, or as I'm performing really, really well in my role, I'm I'm new to the type of like status that comes with that in the business, in a sense, like because I used to only be a high performer as like a team manager. It never really felt like it was me. It was always my team, and it was very easy to defer a lot of that. And it never felt like something I could actually absorb and take in. But now that as like an individual contributor, yeah, I'm trying to not, uh, feed off of it too much. I'm trying to not desire that recognition. I'm trying to not practice in my craft in a way that is, with that in mind, because in my opinion, like I've gotten to where I've gotten because I've stayed, level headed. I've stayed focused. I've just continued to lead with like what I think is good practice. And I want to continue to preserve that while the confetti every now and again pops. So that's where I'm most confident. I could pause there. I'm sure you have other questions or like, do you want me to just
Well, now I
continue on
want to hear on
to,
the flip. I want to hear on the flip side where you're less confident. It couldn't even be that you lack it, just maybe less so than the career.
yeah, I would say I'm probably less confident. Um, most recently, like in a, I want to say, I'm trying to find the way to word this. Um, I think like at this stage in my life, and I'm curious to hear like how it's been for you too, because we're in similar stages of life. Like, and I've had conversations with people about this recently, where it's like being a 31-year-old with a high performing career, and um, I'm starting to add in like other obligations in life, and it's like my social life. I don't. There's like an introvertedness of me where it's like I spend so much of my time and my capacity and my energy on my work or in other areas of my life where it's like there's the Friday nights where I'm like I could curl up under a blanket and just lay on my couch, right? And I think if I were to go out into like a social market and like sell that this is my social life, like this is what I do on a weeknight, or this is, kind of what I do for fun, and this is fun to me, and this is interesting to me. Um, I haven't met enough people, and so I don't think I get enough validation in my environment where they're like, "Hell yeah, that's my vibe too." So, yeah, I think like what I find fun, and it's in the mundane, it's in a very routine life. It's, take a walk, catch a sunrise, hit the grocery store, cook a healthy meal, work out, work, maybe scroll my phone a bit and chat with some people, and that's it. Um, that's most of my days. And I just wonder if people on the outside looking in, they're like, this guy's boring.
So it's interesting because I think what you said was you feel most confident in areas where you're having success, I think is what I heard. And
Yeah.
when I think about confidence in my own life, the key variable I think for me isn't success, but experience. Meaning, like I'm thinking about a networking event, for example, the first networking event I went to not too long ago, like a member meetup, I was like, I don't really feel super confident in this. Now, I'm confident in who I am and in like how I show up. I would say, generally speaking, I don't, I feel pretty confident just broadly speaking, and that I, can show up in a way that is personable and just true to myself. But I wasn't confident in like how to actually navigate a networking event. But now that I've done two or three of them, I feel more confident in going to them because I've got the experience. I know, generally speaking, how they operate, what type of people go, where you put your bags, what to do if you don't really want to drink. Like there's so many different, there's little ways I've gained confidence that have only come through action and experience, not necessarily success in terms of whether, I don't even know how you would define success at a networking event, but I think you get my point of like, to me, when I think about where I feel most confident in my life, it's where I have the most experience, and where I feel the least confident is where I don't have the experience. So I kind of want to get your And maybe they go hand in hand. Like when you have more experience, you tend to be better at things, so you probably have more success. But I want to get your response.
Yeah, I love this topic. When I was coaching people, I tried to explain what confidence is, and I feel pretty certain. I'm actually confident in my definition of confidence. To me, it's what takes over after courage. Confidence to me is just you've received evidence neurologically, like you've received evidence that uh, trigger action is going to lead to a certain reward, and like you do it again and again and again and again. And I think when it's your first time doing something, you're not going to have confidence. It's almost like don't wait till you're ready. Don't wait until you're confident. You're not going to become confident in something. Courage is the first stepping stone, right? So you have to have the courage to go to that networking event for the first time and go through the clunky discomfort of like, well, I'm not going to drink, or where do I put my bags, and who do I talk, right? Like for me, I didn't go into my sales role confident. I went into it confident in certain areas of my life, like confident in my abilities to do X, Y, Z because I know my abilities. But until I started seeing the actual results come through, until I started to see, me actually climb into leaderboards, like otherwise there's no confidence that I'm going to be able to do that. So that's how I used to coach entry level sellers. I used to say like, hey, if you're thinking like, I'm not confident to get on the phones right now, why would you be? You've never done this. If you're looking for confidence or relying on confidence, you're probably going to lack a bias to action. And that's where I used to preach courage. I always had the 3 C's for me. And like courage to me was that initial catalyst. So that's how I think about it all. Very simply, like courage first, confidence second. You have to build the evidence.
And then competence. But I think people want competence before the confidence. And competence.
Yeah, I mean, confidence is a feeling, right? Like to me, that's like an emotion almost. Like you feel confident. Competence is like ability. It's like a tangible, actual ability to execute task, right? I mean, that's the way I would think about it.
I agree. Like and it's almost like, I think broadly speaking, I have a overarching sense of confidence in who I am and that I can figure things out. Like I wasn't confident going into that networking event necessarily, for example, but I was confident that I'd be okay. And like
Exactly.
that's to me how I think about it. And then you
Yeah.
build confidence in individual areas through action, through experience, and then becoming more competent.
And that was the coaching point was, okay, you're not confident in doing this thing. What of it do you fear? Can I find other examples in your life that you've already built the evidence, right? And like, can you be more confident in your ability to take something on that's new because you've done it similarly in another area of your life, right? Like you've dealt with embarrassment before, you've dealt with awkwardness before. Where in your life have you done that? Let's tap into that so that you can remind yourself that like you're capable of surviving this. Yeah. So, I guess when it goes, if I connect it full circle and then we move on to my next question, like where I'm not confident on like the social life piece is like, I'm newly introducing who I am in my social life to other people, right? Like I need to be able to do that, and I need to build evidence that like people will still accept that. People will accept me, and that that will continue to play in the world, right? And if not, I think again, I'm confident in my ability to know that like I don't have to change. I just need to change my environment, or I need to continue to audit my environment, right? So um but it still requires a little bit of courage, right? Because it's new. So
It does,
okay.
because and just to tie a bow on it, because there's discomfort. So I think just to make it practical for people, is like I want to be more confident. I want to, and it's like, then my invitation would be to get more comfortable with being uncomfortable. Do it more. And you can do it in little micro moments, but just sit in it and just be okay with sitting in it. I think, on the last episode, I talked about how I was so uncomfortable, like, doing my Help Me Celebrate videos. But I sat in it. On the other side of that was a little bit of confidence, like, oh, I'm okay here, and I'm having some good conversations. So I guess practically speaking, I think the way to build confidence is obviously through action and recognizing that confidence comes on the other side of it, not beforehand. Now you can use some motivation maybe to kind of that little jolt, but true confidence is going to come from experience and action.
I would actually shout Marina, our like more recent guest, because of I think she was the one who was like talking about just doing new things. And like challenging herself to do things that make her uncomfortable. Like that's literally a practice. When you say get comfortable being uncomfortable, like
I mean, for the last
understanding
3 years, I've been setting one of my resolutions, if you will, is to try 4 new things every year.
yeah, right. And like that's literally what practice is. And what you're doing is you're stacking evidence that like I can handle new situations, I can handle awkwardness, I can handle being amateur at something. um, which is like hard for a lot of people. If you want to go to the gym for the first time, you're going to be surrounded by a bunch of people who are really confident in the gym. Another place in my life where I'm extremely confident, right? Like I walk around gyms like I own the damn place, right? Not with arrogance, but like with zero insecurity. Like I know what I'm doing. My form is good. I'm decently fit, right? Like the whole thing. But like I actually feel bad for a lot of people that want to get into fitness journeys, but it's the gym environment that deters them because they're fearful of being new in that environment. And like I can't fault them, but like at the same time, yeah, it's going to require courage.
That's a good example. Something I take for granted as well.
Question for you. The nod of readiness. I love
Let
it.
it rip.
Yeah. I read this in a book, and I don't think it's a new concept to you, but it's going to have a good question on the other end of it for you. The quote in the book is, "We regret the past and fear the future. Therefore, we disallow ourselves a joyous present." So because our mind is, caught up regretting the past or caught up fearing the future, it pulls us away from enjoying the present moment, and therefore we feel less joy. I want to understand, what of the past do you still regret that your mind goes to? And what of the future do you still fear?
Whew. I'm writing it down. What regret of the past? Because I just got
Yeah,
to
we could
sit with
focus
that.
on regret
I got to
first, and
sit
then we
with
can move
that.
to future.
What part of my past do I still? Well, first of all, I love the quote. I think the quote is very relevant to my life. First and foremost, I would encourage anyone to listen to that again and reflect on what comes up for you when you hear that. I truly don't know that there's anything I regret in my past. I there are certainly things that I would have done differently. Plenty. I would have came out earlier. I would have, I was literally known as, obviously Covey the Dick in college and coming out of college. Like there's a reason for that. That just didn't get thrown out. Like I was very critical and passive aggressive, and there's a lot of, my relationship. There are a lot of things that I would have done differently in my life, but I don't know that I necessarily, and I'm also not proud of, but I don't know that I necessarily regret them, because I was doing the best that I could with the level of consciousness that I had at the time. And to your point, every moment that I spend in some form of regret is taking me out of the present moment and my ability to show up better in the future. And that's how I've always approached when we talk about this form of regret and regrets in the past is, yeah, I can't, change what I've done, but what I can do is focus on showing up and building healthy habits today that allow me to show up as a better person tomorrow. I think our past absolutely shape us in ways, but they don't define us. And so that's how I think about regret in the past. I'll stop there first to see if you have any thoughts. I'm curious if there's anything that you quote unquote regret. I'd almost invite you to challenge me if there's anything that you thought in your mind that I might say, but I truly don't know that there's anything that I like think about in the past that I genuinely still like regret. Again, lots of things I've done I'm not proud of. I got arrested, spent the night in jail, but I don't quote unquote regret them because they all got me to where I am today.
I couldn't agree more. I struggle with that question because I think regret is an emotion. And what I heard from you is a lot of self-acceptance, a lot of self-forgiveness, a lot of self-empathy, right? Self-compassion, if you will, which is, I know you're huge on that, right? Like, and I think there perhaps is a difference, perhaps, and I'm thinking through this, but there are things you look back on and say, today's Matt would not do that. But regret to me is a choice, and it's an emotional choice. Or that's not an emotional choice. It's a choice to attach to a certain emotion of the past, right? I think in your practice of surrendering, right, whether you meditate or what have you, like you've built a really refined practice on how to self-regulate, on how to forgive yourself, on how to accept yourself. And I think because you've done those things, I don't think that you're going to feel regret of the past. And I say that with you as a sample size. I say that for myself as a sample size. Like, I truly believe that regret is a choice. And I think that, like, I don't know, then therefore, I don't know if I would do things differently. But again, I think there's perhaps a difference between if you took me back in time, which is impossible, would I do things differently? And I think that's a different question than if presented with the same scenario today, would today's me do the same thing as yesterday's me? Because one is possible and the other one isn't. And so maybe it's better to reframe the way that we think about those things and understanding, like, I did things in the past that today in the present I wouldn't do, but I choose not to feel regret because I have an ability to surrender and let go and forgive myself and accept myself today. And I can surrender the underlying emotion that comes with past decisions that in today's stage of life don't align with who I am or how I show up. That's how I've been thinking about regret. So I like your answer because I struggle with the question similarly. And I think it's a question that comes from a place of like people who haven't surrendered the emotion.
Yeah, I think, I've always tried to, and don't get me wrong, I want to be very like, when I make mistakes today, it's not like, oh, made a mistake. Oh, well, did the best I could with what I knew. On do we go. It stings. There's, you make a mistake and it's like, oh man, like I could have and should have seen that coming, but I don't dwell on it. It's like, made a mistake. Okay. What can I learn from this situation? Is there anything I can implement into my life, systems, habits, whatever it might be, so that likely won't happen again, and then move forward. So I choose to focus more to try to keep myself in the present, focus on what I can learn rather than dwelling on, again, to your point, things that are ultimately out of our control and can't be changed no matter how long you spend trying to change them. When it comes to the fear of the future, I think there's just a broader sense of, can you hear the dogs going crazy? Okay, great. So shout out to parents' dogs barking away. Anyways, when it comes to the fear of the future, again, I do my best to keep myself in the present. Like, even like this is very real time. The last 2 weeks, or this past week and next week, are very busy. And I had 2 events this week traveling. I have another event this coming week, my sister's wedding. I have a new keynote that I'm delivering in a month that I've built from scratch. So my point being, I've got 3 presentations plus an officiating of my sister's ceremony that I'm all like keeping up in my head right now, that I've memorized, that I'm rehearsing. There's a lot. And when I was entering into this period, I could feel myself getting a little bit anxious of like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do. I'm not going to be able to get it all done, or I'm not going to be able to memorize everything. And then I have this new keynote in a month and I'm not going to know it well enough. And I could start feeling myself, again, just uncertainty going into the future, taking myself out of the present. And so I just tried to ground myself and recognize that let's just take things one day at a time. Focus on what you can control, get something done each day, rehearse at least one of them each and every day, and just start to stack it day by day and stop focusing so much on, 2-3 weeks, a month from now. So I think in the short term that has definitely been relevant in my life when I have a lot going on. And then just bigger picture, when it comes to fear of the future, I think, yeah, it's almost like what is my life going to look like 10 years from now? I have no idea. I'm human. Like I think I do a pretty good job of detaching from what I think it's supposed to look like, but I'm human. And sometimes I'm like, what does that look like? Do I have a family? What does a family look like? Do I have kids? But again, I don't dwell on it. It might come up here and there, and I think that's human, but I don't dwell. But I would say I probably, if anything, struggle more with anxiousness around the future rather than any sort of regret on the past. Mainly because my future is very uncertain. Which I guess it is for everybody, but I don't have any sort of, there's no natural stepping stones for what I do. I'm not moving up the corporate ladder and content with doing that. My life is very nonlinear, non-traditional, and so there's a lot of different moving pieces, and I'm generally okay with that. But I'd be lying if I said I never like, oh, where am I going? What am I going to end up with? What is my life going to look like, and so forth.
The like, what is my life going to look like? I think is such an overwhelming question, but I think that's probably what most people. I think fearing the future is a is a shared thing, right? And I think that's. I think, like you said, it's predicated on a fear of uncertainty, but also I would think there's some sort of like attachment to a vision, right? And like, I always wonder about those people that have like their entire life mapped out. I know I want this, I know I want that, and this is what this is what I'm striving for. And
Which brings up even more
that's,
anxiety.
and I was gonna say, yeah, in that scenario, it's like you're sort of boxing yourself in and closing, like you're narrowing possibility in some sense, unless you're not, right? Unless you're welcome to straying off of that. But for those that have like this thing like fully mapped out and they can clearly see what they want to, where they are, what they're doing when they're 40, I just wonder how much more pressure that puts on them to make decisions today, or like how.
100%,
Mhm.
because the decisions are based not on who am I in the present and becoming connected to that, but what decisions can I make that are going to get me to where I think I want to go, or to where I think I want to be, even with that actually may not be what's actually meant for you, whether it's the person you end up with or the job you're supposed to be in. So people they become disconnected from themselves because every decision they make is based on a guess on what they think is going to provide the feelings that they want, not on who they actually are and spending time in the present.
You just decided to spit bars on a Saturday
Y-
morning. What day is
You
it?
just
My
you
goodness.
spurred the thought in me. I was thinking
I
about
know, I
someone in
could
particular
tell.
that I'm not going to name, but
I hopped on mute. I let you cook. I said, go ahead, bro. Yeah. And then on the flip, it's like, it's either you're making decisions, like you said, based on like trying to guess what you're trying to accomplish in the future. And that'll probably come with a great deal of dissatisfaction or anxiety or
and the worst part is they
even
think
more.
they know. It's not a
Right.
guess to
Yeah.
them.
But then it's like for us, where I don't have that fully mapped out, my fear is, you know, will I be happy with what ends up happening, right? Like, and I think that's a grounding perspective that you always have on that. It's like just make decisions based on the moment and trust where that leads. And that's like so much, I think, easier said than done in many ways. Um, and that's yeah, it's a good reminder to not put so much pressure on trying to create a future scenario.
Yeah, I think, obviously you can make decisions, or you can think about how your decisions today are going to impact your future, but they should be made from the present, from a place of connection, not made from a place of being in your head and ruminating. So I don't think we're saying never think about the future. I think it's be in the present when you think about it.
Yeah, well, it's understanding your decisions have consequences. Yeah. Like,
Of course.
it's what we're not saying is like, don't disregard the consequence of your actions. Like,
Right. Well, I just want to be happy in this moment, so I'm going to eat whatever I want to eat.
yeah, like, right. But, there's a psychological component of like, I think it's Carl Jung that says like, you're unconscious. If you can tap into your subconscious, like that'll lead you to where you got to go, basically. Like um, it's almost like your own compass. And we sit up here and on the conscious, we try to intellectualize, like we try to direct ourselves, but it's really our subconscious that's steering the ship. And it's like, can you connect your word, right? Like, can you connect to that and trust into it, like your intuition, basically, and then make conscious decisions off of that.
Now, my next question for you is, what's a core belief you believe to be true about humanity or life that shapes how you show up in the world?
Big time sirens outside. I'm trying to let it quell. What's a core belief I have about humanity
or life itself
that shapes how I show up in my life?
Correct. Like for me, to me, love is always the answer. Could be an example. Like I always believe that love is the right choice. There's different ways it shows up, but that's a core belief.
I think a core belief that I have, and maybe this is not just a belief, maybe I don't know if this is a fact, or I think to many people it'll probably sound like a belief. I'll say it's a belief humbly, and then I'll let other people decide if it's
their beliefs are facts. So
yeah. I mean, to me, it's true. I would say that we, as a humanity, we fear, by and large, I think we're biologically wired to fear death. I think like our subconscious at our root is a one giant holistic survival mechanism. And so from that, I think a lot of when we talk about the subconscious steering the ship, so many actions, so many attachments to either identities, so many lacking moments in our lives where we lack the courage, where we lack the confidence, where we lack bias to action, where we choose hate over love at times, right? Where we let fear really at the surface drive who we are and what we do. I think my belief is that if you continue to just like peel back the layers of the onion, you'll get to a place of like this person fears their mortality. And so how I try to show up is I'm really trying to master that part of it. And I dropped that phrase, I think on our last show, or maybe just in conversation with you, memento mori, like keeping front of mind that I'm going to die someday, And I think why that has served me so well is because that attacks to me very directly that fear that we all share as a human. It's our cognitive ability to understand our own mortality. And if I can just master that fear, if I can just continue to operate from a place of courage against that and just be able to let go of everything else after that, I would say yeah, that's how I try to show up. Now, I am not perfect, right? Like you talked about your example of feeling anxious about all that you have going on in the next however many weeks, right? In your near-term future. Allow yourself to feel anxiety, like it's not like it's not like a magic pill. But it's certainly a perspective that can help if we tap into that energy of like, I'm gonna die someday, man. Like, who cares if this doesn't go well, or right? What I try then not to do though is become nihilistic. And I try to make sure that it doesn't suck the joy out of the world and out of life. And I try to make sure that like I can still seek out good experiences. Um, and that's kind of like my next step, because when I first came up with, when I first started to, I think, form these beliefs and like have this outlook on the world, on humanity, on myself, and act on it, I think it was very easy to become nihilistic. Um, what I'm now working on is like, because I'm going to die someday, allow myself to feel the joy, allow myself to enjoy the world, enjoy experiences, allow myself to laugh, allow myself to, um, you know, have like the playful, stupid fun. And that was almost like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, in my opinion. Was like I threw all of it out when I realized I was going to die someday. But now I'm bringing some of that stuff back in. I'm trying to like,
So that's the core belief. I'm going to die someday, which is, I think, objectively
well,
true. I'm not really.
that's a fact. That's not, I mean, that's a core mantra. It's just remembering our mortality, I think, makes everything around us a little less serious. But I do think like, um, it colors the way that I view or maybe even judge humanity a bit, right? When I see certain actions, I'm like, does this person remember that they're not going to be here at some point? Like, that's sort of, it's a weird people observer way of like walking through the world.
What I feel like it's come up in our conversations a lot recently from your side. So I'm curious if your relationship with it has evolved. Like, what is your relationship with courage, or what does it mean to you? Because I feel like that word has come up quite a bit over the last maybe 6 months, and maybe that's just a false observation. But I feel like I've heard you use that word quite a bit. It comes up in the answers.
It's the antidote to fear. And so my relationship with courage is, that's my answer. That's like whether I'm coaching or whether I'm working on myself, like I don't know if there's a better quality, or I don't know what you would call courage, skill, quality, trait.
A trait.
Um, I don't know if there's a better one, right? Like I don't, because it's the direct antidote to fear. And what you and I have talked about so many times is like, at one point you were very into the topic of fear, right? Like maybe you still are, but like when you talk about what we just talked about, which is like our fear of our own mortality, is like the deepest part of, if you think of a plant, right, or a tree, like the deepest part of the root. It's not just the roots. It's like you're getting to the very, very deepest part. To me, in my opinion, my belief is that like our fear of our mortality is that deepest part. And so the only response to that is to either let that drive the rest of the shape of the tree, or respond to that courageously. Have the courage to accept, surrender, and let be the fact of your mortality. And I think then that, I mean, so courage to me is the kryptonite. It's like it's the
It's the key
only,
ingredient.
it's the only response that's going to alter the shape of the tree, in my opinion. So my relationship with courage is I hold it in a very high regard. If nothing else, I think that almost like, if you had nothing else but one thing, give me courage. And I think that that's
What
a
would be what would
chilling
be what
realization.
would be others? Like, what do you think others would argue instead of courage if you could have one thing?
Well, I think I'm trying not to like argue against it while I'm saying it, but like I think that we might default to like just a constant joyfulness or happiness. I think I think there's a very common strive for happiness, like when I get this, I'll be happy. And I think happiness is one of those topics that is understood but also misunderstood. We had a guest who wrote a book on happiness, right? Stephanie is her name.
Yeah.
But if I were to argue that on the spot, I'd be like, you have to have courage to be happy. You have to make the choice to be happy, and that
Right.
requires courage to let go of certain things. So, yeah, I don't know, maybe that. I think confidence, again, I think people skip the first step and they're like, give me confidence if nothing else. Confidence in myself, confidence, I'll take that and run with it. I just think you skip a step.
Yeah, because I
You
think,
must.
Stephanie defined happiness as like, I forgot the thing, but one of them is like to just be able to discover your unique gifts, basically. And then another step of using those gifts, your unique gifts, to help others in some way. And I feel like in order to truly discover your unique personal gifts, courage is required to do that, to really look within yourself and uncover all aspects of who you are takes an incredible amount of courage. So to me, I think courage to your point is just, I mean, obviously I've got, and I think we all do in some ways, but I've got just a lot of experience with feeling like I've got to cultivate some form of courage. And the other thing, which is interesting, I think about courage, like we said, it's a trait. It's not fixed. Like if you ask, would you consider yourself a courageous person? I think my answer would be yes, but that doesn't mean that I've got it for the rest of my life. It's a muscle that needs to be trained. I have the choice to sit and stay in my comfort zone for the rest of my life if I want to,
Mm.
if I so choose to, and never exercise courage again. So then I'd no longer be a courageous person. I guess my point being is, I think when we think about courage, a lot of people think about it as you have it or you don't. And it, it is certainly, to me, not just a trait, but a trait that can be a skill that can be developed and a muscle that can be trained. And like any muscles in life, they require continuous training, or else you lose the ability. Because I mean, when I was first, when I first came out, and I mean, I had so much momentum. It's like, wow, I just overcame this, and now I'm doing all these different things. Like my courage levels were through the roof. I'm like, wow, this is. And then as things wind down, I'm like, oh, it's actually really hard to do this. I know I did it and I kind of really did it that one time, and it was really hard, but I did it, and I really felt great about it. But now I got to do it again and again and again, and it's really hard to do that. And so it requires perspective and training. So, anyways, I don't know how we got on this topic, but
That's not cold calling, man. I've been selling
another
for
good
8 years,
example.
and I still fear cold calling, and I have to muster up the courage. It's like you're revving up an engine in some ways. But I think what I'm hearing too from you is a lot of just identity attachments, where we take these labels, and it's like when they say when you're trying to quit smoking, stop saying I'm a smoker, right? Like I smoke, right? Or like just describe it as the behavior that you do, and don't describe it as the behavior that you are. And I think that's similar with positive traits.
And even so much so, and I can't remember if we talked about this before, but sometimes I try to fast, and the night before I tell myself I'm going to fast for the day and I won't eat till 4 or 5 o'clock for my one meal. And then in the morning, I'll tell someone, yeah, I'm trying to fast today. But even saying like I'm trying to do it, it almost implies to me that like it almost gives myself an out. Whereas when I've told myself I'm fasting today to somebody, I'm like, boom, commitment. I'm doing it. And it actually works. And I catch myself. Because today I'm fasting because I'm going out to eat for dinner with my parents. I'm like, ooh, I want to eat like there's this. I love the menu. I want to eat like a nice big meal. And I was on the road all week, so I was eating out a lot and eating stuff that I don't normally eat. So like I just wanted to reset my body. And I caught myself this morning where I'm like, maybe I'll still have a small meal beforehand. I'm like, no. I'm not trying to do it. I'm fasting today. And so I think even those little, like, it might seem minuscule, but I promise if you can catch yourself in the moment and have the awareness to catch it and just make a small shift in the way that you're almost approaching it yourself, I do think it makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the power of affirmations. Like I see these influencers out there, um, that they look themselves in the mirror and they encourage others, hence the influence. But like they encourage other people to do this, which is like look yourself in the eyes and speak out these identity statements that reinforce behavior. So the fasting one's an odd example here, but like the other ones are like, I'm a courageous person, right? Can you tell yourself that in the mirror? I would almost caution that just a bit because, I think that puts a lot of pressure on you when you start attaching identity to anything, because then the next time you don't act on courage, that might backfire a bit in some ways, right? When you trick your mind into thinking that your identity is of a certain, trait, and then there's a moment in your life where you don't act on that, it's almost like self-betrayal. It's almost like you disproved something that you tricked yourself into. So I'm skeptical when it comes to affirmations. I'm a little skeptical, and I got to think more about this, but I'm skeptical of it being phrased as identity versus, I'm going to act courageously today. I'm not going to try, but I'm going to act courageously today. And just being able to reframe it as an act versus as an identity, I think probably reduces some of the pressure, because in a moment where you don't, then you can at least be like, okay, well, that was a tough moment. To be able to do that next time, I will.
I think I think you would, I don't know if you still follow Chris Lee at all, but he is
Mm-hmm.
very anti affirmations for the most part. I think for that reason. And I also think it's important, like, especially when it creates a lot of cognitive dissonance if you're using and verbally saying positive affirmations when you're dysregulated, because it's like your body knows. It's like, but I don't. There was even an affirmation I think I was listening to this morning. It was I was doing yoga nidra this morning, which is like non-sleep deep rest, kind of like meditation, like deep sleep meditation. And she asked you, I forgot what she calls it, but there's like one like mantra to carry into the into the practice. And she gave two examples that you could use. And the first one she used, I forgot what it was, but I remember sitting there. I'm like, that doesn't resonate. Like, I'm not using that because I'm not that. Like, and then she gave another one. I was like, okay, yeah, that I feel like I can get with that. But affirmations are better than, I guess, nothing in some cases. But the goal is for it to spur action. The goal is for it to you'd actually then do something about it. Like simply saying I'm a courageous person and doing nothing about it is actually, like, to your point, I think creates harm in some way, because it creates a lot of dissonance between who you're trying to say you are, but who you actually know you believe to be true. So anyways, I think this is a great topic. Maybe one we could pick up next week. Do you have any last thoughts? All right. Guys, thank you again so much for hopping up in the arena. As always, if you have questions, comments, concerns, confessions, anything, either respond in the comments of Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this, YouTube, or shoot us a message. I think you know where to find us. If you don't, let me know, and we would love to chat. So thank you all. Have a blessed rest of your day, and take care.